Perfect. How many of you have been to Bright Moments already this week? All right, cool, a few. How many of you still plan to go? Okay, hopefully after this talk, you'll definitely go. I'll tell you. So, hi everybody. My name's Ian Rogers, and I moved here a little over 8 years ago to take the role as Chief Digital Officer at LVMH. Before that, I spent the first 20 years of my career doing digital music, starting in Indiana in the mid-90s. I dropped out of grad school in 1995 to go on tour with the Beastie Boys, which put me in California. Worked with an early digital music project called Nullsoft, which made a popular MP3 player called Winamp. We sold that to AOL. Two of us started another company. We sold that to Yahoo. I worked at and then ran Yahoo Music for a number of years, and then did Beats Music, which was the software spin-off of Beats Electronics, headphone brand. We sold Beats to Apple, built Apple Music, and then I was recruited here by Mr. Arnaud and LVMH to be the Chief Digital Officer, which has been quite a ride. Then 3 years ago, I left LVMH to join a company called Ledger. We make the number one security device for digital assets. The bottom line is we believe that there will be more digital ownership in the future than there is today. I think that's an understatement, but it's like in 1998 saying I think there will be more internet tomorrow than there is today. But also that ownership of private keys is important. And just for like 2 seconds of context on that, you have 5.3 billion human beings on the internet today, 5 billion on social media, 3.3 billion people play video games on the planet today. There are only about 500 million people who are in the world of digital ownership, and only about 10 million of those people actually own the keys themselves. So most everyone in this room is susceptible to a SIM attack, which could take the last 15 years of your photos, in short. So that's sort of the problem that we're addressing, if you want to put it in a very broad way. But I actually intersected with Seth back. What year would that have been?
2010, 2011.
Yeah. So pre-Bright Moments, pre-digital ownership in many ways.
Mid-Web 2.
Mid-Web 2, and Seth was running a very popular music service called Turntable.fm at that moment. But maybe with that, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Sure. It's nice to be here. I'm just taking it all in.
Right? It's real, actually. It's not in your goggles.
Yeah. So, like Ian, I'm a Web 1, Web 2, Web 3 entrepreneur. I started my first internet company in 1995. It was called Site Specific, and we were one of the first online advertising agencies. It was really exciting at the time. It was really creative. It wasn't just about the last incremental 0.001 click-through rate. I remember doing a project for Condé Nast online for Hotwired, advertising Details magazine through a banner, and we got a 40% click-through because no one had seen banners before. So
I remember those early Hotwired banners. We weren't sure what we thought of them. We were like, wait, that looks like a billboard on a website. That's weird.
So we've come a long way. In Web 2, I worked on Turntable FM, which was a social music service. I also started one of the first alternative data companies called Majestic Research that took internet data and sold it to hedge funds and mutual funds. So if you think 10, 15 years ago, a lot of financial institutions were investing in internet companies publicly, but didn't have any data between the quarters. So a company would tell you through their earnings report how they were doing, but if you owned a big position in eBay or Amazon, we had data to tell you how the company was doing based on looking at the behavior of millions of people online. And that was called Majestic Research. And then, long story short, moved from the Bay Area to Venice Beach during the pandemic. I was just done with entrepreneurship. I was done with starting companies. I was tired. And it was a very fertile time for a lot of collectibles, for this thing that we now call NFTs. A lot of artists were stuck at home writing code. We saw with some of the retail stocks like GameStop, what happens with that kind of degenerate behavior, people doing things. NBA Top Shot, right, was a thing where you were buying and selling, what were they called? You were buying moments, right? And so that was one of the inspiration for Bright Moments as a name. We wanted to call it something that wasn't so techy or digital. And a group of us decided to open up a very humble NFT gallery right by the beach in Venice Beach in April of 2021. We called it Bright Moments. We put some screens on the walls, and the idea was these NFTs that had kind of bubbled up in 2017 with CryptoPunks and CryptoKitties, and then died for a moment with all the ICOs that crashed and burned. They were coming back. And at the end of 2020, at the beginning of 2021, with Super Rare, with Foundation, with the beginning of Art Blocks, some of these platforms were starting to see a lot of pent-up demand from people that were stuck at home. And our thought was, people were so desperate to go outside again. They were so desperate to be together in a physical space. I used to joke that if we had opened a dry cleaning service, people would have come. It didn't have to be an art gallery. People were just hungry to be together. And so the idea was put some NFTs on screens on the walls. You didn't have to ship the frames. You could call them up. It was permissionless. And people would come. And we did it as a DAO. So the other interesting thing we did is we set up, I was tired of creating traditional venture-backed companies. I call it asshole capitalism. I can say this in France because there's a spirit here, but Silicon Valley, it's a trickle-down economy. It benefits people that own venture capital firms, but most people don't get access to those shares until they're public. And the idea with a DAO was to make it more egalitarian and to align interests. And so there's no equity in Bright Moments. There's crypto citizens, only NFTs, and there'll be 10,000 by the end of April when we finish Venice, Italy. And so we structured ourselves as a DAO. The ownership of Bright Moments is in the form of these crypto citizens. We do 1,000 in each city, and we are more than 2.5 years through. So we started in Venice Beach. We did the Crypto Venetians. We went to New York. We did the Crypto New Yorkers. We did an online mint for our DAO called the Crypto Galacticans. That's 3 cities. We went to Berlin. Ian was there at Kraftwerk, which we should talk about in terms of immersiveness. It was amazing. We did the Crypto Berliners. We did the Crypto Londoners. That's 5 cities. We did the Crypto Mexas in Mexico City. We did the Crypto Tokyoites last May. We did the Crypto Patagonians in Buenos Aires. And we're here to do the Crypto Parisians. We hope you will come and see it or experience it yourself. And then we will finish in April during the Biennale to do the Crypto Venetians. And everywhere we go, we also work with artists to produce new works of art. And so starting really in Venice and then in New York, we did a big show with Tyler Hobbs called Incomplete Control. And so we've worked with a number of really interesting, powerful, generative and AI artists around the world. More than 100 now have worked with us. We've worked on multiple chains. So ETH, FX Hash, now Base. We haven't done Ordinals or Solana yet. We've worked on multiple platforms, so Art Blocks, FX Hash, Highlight, Foundation, and we're really art forward. There has to be I don't want to say gamification, but it has to be fun, right? So our thing is serious fun. So it's high art and low culture at the same time. I used to joke that we're like Cirque du Soleil meets Coinbase. Fred calls us a Barnum and Bailey meets Gagosian. And I think that's the line that we try to take. We all have fun. If you come through, you'll see. I'm wearing this not fashionably, because this is the uniform that we're wearing in the gallery. It's all cream and white. And so we have a lot of fun with this. We're an extended community around the world. Everybody votes on chain. Everyone gets paid in ETH. It's a really interesting experiment. And through this alignment, through tokens, we built some amazing relationships along the way. And we're excited to be here in Paris.
And let me tell you why you must go. There are people in the room that have not yet been and we're not planning to go, and I'm talking to you. You really do, you do need to go. I would also recommend, going on to the secondary market, buying a mint pass, and coming. It'll cost you a couple $100, and it's worth it. All of the artists who are there are worth collecting. So it's not like a ticket. It's not something you're buying from Live Nation and you're going to print it on your printer at home and then throw it away after the show. You're actually going to end up with a piece of art in your wallet. So you could spend a little more and get a crypto Parisian, or you could spend less and get art from one of the artists. It's also a great way to research the artists and see which one you connect with personally. It's the whole world of generative and AI and NFT art is pretty vast, and it's hard to know where to start. But actually, if you're looking at just the artists that are in Bright Moments, it's a tractable problem, right? How many artists total?
So we have a lot of artists, and a lot of them are there.
No, but how many in Paris right now?
19. So there's 19. So there's 19 artists that we're minting, and when we say we're minting, it means that the work is being, in most cases, generated on the spot by you, the collector. It exists in an algorithm, and it's being output as you're there, so you're generating it with the artist.
Yeah, and I did one yesterday with our 9-year-old and the artist, who was very lovely, and Anna did her best to speak French with Nina, and so I super recommend it. And this is what I've been saying to my colleagues at LVMH is, you must come, and I'll tell you why. Seth and his team are selling a luxury product, right? Again, the starting price is a couple $100. And I've collected pieces. I have offers out now on Bright Moments pieces that aren't being taken, that are in the $6,000 range, right? In terms of, I'm offering to pay that much for a Bright Moments piece, and no one is accepting my offer, right? Where it is a luxury product in that sense. But that product is completely digital, but it is full of the type of storytelling that we do in luxury, and it is truly a luxury experience. When you go there and you experience. So I was there at opening yesterday. I think we did one of the very first mints in Paris with Jens, who maybe some of you know. He's the chief digital officer at Dior, and we went through. So I haven't minted my Parisians yet, but I sat next to Jens while he minted his, and it's an experience. Like, you really should experience it.
12 to 6 today, tomorrow, and Saturday. 7 Rue Bailly in Le Marais. Just come. Whether you have a mint pass, whatever, just come.
And by the way, today between noon and 3, I'm your DJ.
He's DJing.
So what is your excuse? Like, really?
The other thing you can do.
Maybe your excuse is, well, Ian's DJing, which is a good excuse, actually. I'll take that one.
The other thing you can do right now is you can go to highlight.xyz and you can mint Zancan for free. There's a free mint that's sponsored by Coinbase. Zancan is probably the most important, influential, generative artist in France. I'd say Zancan, Seifert, William Mapan, obviously Vera Molnar, but this is a very special opportunity to get something into your wallet for, I think it's a $2.33 transaction fee.
Yeah, so no excuses.
Yeah, no excuses.
If your excuse is, I'm lame, I'm lazy, okay, that's fine.
I'm poor, whatever, it's free.
It's free, yeah. And then there's other very inexpensive mints on Highlight that are so there really is no excuse, right? Except laziness, which is a pretty lame excuse. But you got up early in the morning to come here, so I think you're beyond that. And the reason that I'm emphatic about it, I'm not a part of it, apart from being a collector who's put a lot of my own money into it. It's because I personally believe that if you fast forward 20 years, fully 50% of luxury purchases will be pure digital. And probably 100% of luxury purchases will come with a digital component, either a proof of concept, a proof of purchase, or a provenance, authenticity, something like that. It'll be it'll be completely normal. And the reason I say that is the impetus for buying an NFT is identical to the impetus for buying a luxury watch. Absolutely no one buys a luxury watch to tell the time, right? Why do you buy one? You buy one because you appreciate the aesthetics, you appreciate the craft, and you want to be a part of that small community of people, who appreciates this thing, right? So that is identical to why you buy a digital good, and the reality is it's much easier to show off a digital good than it is a physical one. Right, and people ask me, what's the utility of digital art? And my answer is, it's actually a lot more than a big, heavy physical painting. In fact, a lot more. And that future generations will appreciate that, and it makes it sort of an easy bet. But the thing that Bright Moments does that's quite unique is they actually manifest it in a physical experience and a community, which to me feels a lot like the luxury world. So that's why I'm emphatic about it.
Yeah, so Ian came in April or May of 22. We did the Crypto Berliners, and that was a Kraftwerk in Germany, in Berlin. It's a 80,000 square foot former turbine room of a power plant in East Germany, formerly East Germany. And it was a monumental experience. ETH was at 4,000. Everything was pumping. We had sold mint passes. We had a lot of money. And Germany was coming out of COVID, and we went over there after we were in New York, and we booked this magnificent venue, and we did it for 10 nights. And it was really a high watermark for us in terms of immersion, with a 8 by 8 meter screen, amazing DJs. And I'll never forget Ian there. You came a couple nights in a row with Hedwig, and I never thought of what we're doing as luxury. There was no intention of creating a luxury brand. I still don't really think of Bright Moments in the luxury sense. But what we were doing, and I think what Ian probably before anybody tapped into, is we were providing these transactions on the blockchain with a really important context, right? And I think from the beginning of Bright Moments, what we've been doing, and I think what you'd see if you come by today or you come to Venice, is how do we make what's a simple digital transaction memorable, right? How do we endow it with meaning? If you buy a Picasso painting through an auction house or whatever, that's one thing. But if you can trace it back to your great-grandmother who went to his studio and sat with him, it takes on a different kind of value. And so if you think about Bright Moments, we've done now 20,000 mints, 20,000 NFTs minted over the last couple years, physically. Like in one of these cities, that collector had a chance to actually experience that transaction physically. Right? Set and setting. Ismail is here from Trame, and we're doing a project with an amazing architect firm called Aranda Lash. They're one of the 12 generative artists as part of the Paris collection. Each one of these artists is generating 100 outputs. And so if you come, you'll generate an output. It looks like a pattern. And you can probably buy it for a couple $100 right now. But through Trame, we've partnered with Maison Drucker, which is the old world chair company that makes all the cafe chairs in France. So not only can you get that NFT as a pattern, but you can also, for $900, get a chair that has it woven in, and suddenly you have your own cafe set. You can get 4 chairs, and you know that this design is yours, and that maybe you were there with the artist in Paris when that algorithm first generated that design. Now you have 4 chairs in your living room, and then your kids inherit those chairs, and that's valuable, and I think that is luxury, and I think that's what we're tapping into.
And I think what I'm trying to do for everyone How many here? Who here collects NFTs at this point? Okay, so we do have people that feel it. This is my point. It's one thing to read about monkey pictures in the Wall Street Journal. It's another thing to feel a connection with an artist, right? And that to me is what Seth is describing, and that's just the simple thing I'm trying to get everyone to experience is to feel it. So if you go to so I have a gallery of the things I've collected. It's gallery.so/HI gallery. So Hedvig and Ian, HI gallery. There I have a collection of my Bright Moments pieces. So you can actually see sort of a number, and I don't have all, but I have a number of pieces I've collected that come from Bright Moments. So you can sort of see them all in one place, so outside of that experience. And you get just a sense of aesthetics. The reason that's a starting point for me with people, because I find that when people go look at the gallery, it often changes what they thought about NFTs. Oh, I thought it was something else. I hear that all the time. But then when they look at that and they go, I see something aesthetic, and actually, Ian, I see you in it, because there are photos. There's photos of the Wu-Tang Clan. And you're like, oh, that looks like Ian. Okay, I see. I get skateboarding. I get it. Okay, but I think that helps, because it becomes more personal. It becomes less abstract. That's also why I really super encourage people to do something, to come by. And also another thing, you mentioned Ismail. Ismail, if you could raise your hand. I definitely recommend talking to Ismail as well, because he has another kind of instantiation of this that I think would be interesting to you, where he works with these artists, and as Seth said, in the case of what they're doing at Bright Moments, when you come over, you'll see the Maison Drucker chair that was done with a Ronda Lash. But also, he's done projects recently with great generative artists like Martin Grasser, who's at Bright Moments this year, Jeff Davis, who's also at Bright Moments this year, and Alexis Andre, who is a great French digital artist who's been based in Tokyo until recently. But with these, he's done with Alexis Andre a tapestry crafted in Aubusson, with Jeff Davis stained glass that was done with what are they called in Chartres? Atelier d'Art. And then Murano glass done in Italy with Martin Grasser. And I think, again, I'm trying to build these bridges between maybe the world that you work in today and the world of generative art. So if you talk to Ismail, you can see those things as well. Maybe with that, we've put it out there. What questions do people have for us? We could talk all day, but what questions do people have for us?
In my experience, people tend to romanticize the participatory nature of organizations like DAO. In a way, democracy is overrated. In your experience of managing your DAO, how engaged are people actually in the DAO? And
I'm glad you asked. This is a question I had for Seth as well, because I think DAOs have a fatal flaw: democracy. So I'm super curious. As someone who's raised venture capital and now managed a DAO, where's your net?
So there's no TLDR net yet. We're still in it. I definitely think if we weren't a DAO, I don't think we'd still be here. If we'd raised a bunch of money traditionally, we would have set our sights on some product market fit. The market would have changed 3 times, and we would have been shit out of luck, right? Because of the way we're structured and because we don't have external equity, for example, we kind of eat what we kill. We run out of money each city, and then we sell tokens for the next one. And because we've been doing that every 3 or 4 months, the market keeps shifting. We're able to kind of titrate, our economics around where the market is. And so it ensures that we're very focused on just effectively figuring out, because, we've seen ETH at 4,500, we've seen ETH at 800, right? In terms of just the organizational dynamics, one of the harder things is it's easy to get people involved, right? It's easy to give out tokens, right? I minted 10 million BRT tokens into my wallet in March of 2021, and somehow that turned into 10,000 crypto citizens through a whole bunch of things. But, because I'm 50-something, not 20-something, I know to let go. The more I give, the more I'm going to get. The 20-something version of me, I want to own as much as I can. And if I had done that here, we would have failed, right? There's a concept called progressive decentralization that I took very dearly. And so early on in Venice, we had 20 people who wanted to get involved. I didn't have to worry about stock agreements and option agreements. I just sent them ERC20 tokens for my wallet, and it felt tangible. And those weren't securities, God forbid, but it was enough to feel that it's real, that this was in their wallet, and no one could take that away. And that's what started this process in terms of how much engagement we have. The way we structure it's really cool. Like, first of all, the project was designed to be completed. Which company do you know is designed to shut down? Very few. They're designed to either go public, or get sold, right? With Bright Moments, we knew we're going to be the slowest mint ever, right? All these other projects mint 10,000, and then they either they pump or they go away. We're going to do it hand by hand, hand-to-hand combat, 3 years, and we're still doing it, and we're exhausted. It's hard, in the middle of the pandemic, it sounded great to travel the world, right? I was stuck at home. Christy wants to leave me every other week, right? We're tired, but we're doing it, and we feel a sense of completion. As we go, the way we're structured, because more citizens join the DAO every couple months, every new city, we have a bigger community, right? So 1,600 out of 8,000 citizens voted on Paris, right? That's pretty high participation. Other people, another 800 or 900 voted for Dubai, another 800 or 900 voted for Cape Town, but all in all, I'd say almost half of the people that could have voted did. So that's super high engagement. In terms of too much democratization, one dirty secret is the curation of Bright Moments is not decentralized. It's mostly me, right? And I'm not embarrassed about that because I actually think that's one of the stronger things we have going. I'm trying to teach everybody how to have a good eye, which artists are worth working with, how we should make some of those decisions. But if you take something like Nouns, for example, Nouns is an amazing decentralized model. And they had, maybe they still have, a huge treasury, making a new noun every day, selling it, putting it in the treasury, and being open to the community automatically for projects. But the curation went haywire, and I think they lost the plot in terms of their own culture. And so I think, how do we balance top-down taste-making, right, with bottom-up participation? And I think as more and more people join the DAO, we've worked with amazing artists. I mean, the thing that makes me happiest when I come to our gallery, and you see, is there's a lot of artists there, and they're comfortable being there. Most times, if you go to a gallery opening, there's an artist and there's 100 people, and some of the artists are more comfortable socially than others. With us, a lot of the artists that we've worked with come to these events. They mint each other's work. Part of the compensation for every artist that mints, for all the 19 artists in Bright Moments Paris, each one gets a full mint pack of all the other artists, right? So part of what you're getting paid is art from your other artists. And so we've just kind of learned to do things like that I think addresses some of the questions you have about DAOs.
This is definitely a lot of the reason that I'm here. I always say that a consumer internet of 5.3 billion people is far less interesting to me than what I got into in the early 90s, right? There was a woman that I met in 1994. She ran new media for Capitol Records, where the Beastie Boys were in those days. Our good friend of both of us, Liz Heller, and she was at our apartment a couple weeks ago, and a friend asked, how do you guys know each other? And Liz looked at me and said, if you were doing music on the internet in 1994, you knew everyone else who was doing music on the internet. And this scene is a little bit like that. I remember, when I was a kid, my mom, because I begged her, taking me to see AC/DC and Kiss and like you watch them as like these tiny guys on this little stage. And then I remember seeing my first punk rock show in 1995, and it was this band Youth of Today opening for Henry Rollins. And while I was watching Youth of Today, I looked to my left, and Henry Rollins was standing there. That's what it's like to be at Bright Moments, right? It's like you're a part of something that is that is incredibly new. We were at Ismail's the Tram Paris space last night with like literally some of my heroes, like Eric Calderon, Sam Spratt in the house, like like to me, just crazy talents. So that's another reason I think to be a part of it. So and thank you for the question, because I think that the DAO aspect of it, it's interesting, like to see. I think the thing that I would say from the outside is two things. One, you have to, as you did, compare being a DAO and living town to town versus raising capital and having investors who are expecting a return over a certain timeline, right? And when the market goes from this to this, how do they behave, right? Your board starts to lose their mind, right? Because you made a shit ton of money at Kraftwerk in Berlin, and the next city's not going like that, and like what do we do, right? Where you don't have that same panic. Also, you have something that's quite defined. The people who are members know what they're getting. They're going to get 10 cities. It's going to be capped at 10,000 citizens. Like most projects aren't. Most projects are saying like, okay, we're welcome, and then we're going to figure it out, right? Whereas what Seth did, which is I think in stark contrast to that, is there was a vision. The vision was clear. If you want in, cool. If not, cool. And it has a beginning, a middle, and an end, and you can participate in these ways, and you build momentum as you go, and then I think you'll end up with a whole bunch of optionality at the end of that. So great question. 10 minutes left. What other questions do you have for us? You want to pass?
I'll try that.
Yeah.
Great, super interesting. My question is, in terms of like generative art now, it's like we're talking about it in almost a way of like it's always been there and we take it for granted. Just like we talked about the metaverse, we talked about everything about 3, like a year ago, 18 months ago. Now we can like shape to it like a metaverse. It's like my question is this: like, do you think how will we talk about generative art in 1 year, 2 years, and if it still has the same relevancy as it has today, what is it about it that is different, historically speaking, because it's a new way of creating art, and the relationship between the artist and the buyer is completely different. So, what are your thoughts around that?
It's a really good question. Obviously, you say metaverse and we cringe. Web3 is still a little cringy. NFTs, less cringy than they were 6 months ago, but still a little cringy. Generative art's not cringe, but it's dead compared to where it was a year ago, right, or 2 years ago. Just to give you some sense, like, the Tyler Hobbs show that we did in Complete Control in December of 2021, we sold, and the point, a lot of these shows, like the art's already sold before the show happens. So we sold 100 Mint passes, which gave the holder of the Mint Pass the opportunity to come physically to the gallery in New York over the course of 4 days and mint one of the Incomplete Control outputs. And the day before the show, those were going for 80 ETH, when ETH was at 4,000, which is $320,000, for not only art that hadn't been created, but Tyler didn't even share previews. So you were buying blind. And there was huge demand, right? You flash forward to today, free Zancan. Go to highlight.xyz.
I want a t-shirt that says free Zancan, by the way. That's a really fucking good idea. Who wants to help me with that?
And so we've lived through, the changes of the meta. AI is super hot now, but 10 years ago, it was kind of cringy. People didn't want to hear about it. So these things come and go. I think generative art specifically, like there's a long history of procedural art with, Saul LeWitt, Yves Klein. So I think this idea of procedural art, code-based art is here forever. I think this era or this epoch that we're in right now, at the dawn of generative AI, is going to age well. And there are artists that code without Copilot, right? Without ChatGPT, like Tyler Hobbs, like Emily G, like Matt Delorier, like Def Beef, like Eric Calderon, like there's Peter Pasma, there's some unbelievable coders who aren't using Photoshop, right? They're yes, you can call them digital artists, but their art is their code, right? And I don't think that's going away. That is not, there's no hype cycle for that. That is true craft.
Correct, and the acknowledgement of that as craft is what caused me to double down in the space. So sitting in a room that looked not unlike this one. I think I was at the Monet, what's it called? The money museum, the money house, right? Whatever that. Yeah, thank you. And I was talking to a room full of luxury folks, and someone at the back said, "How can that be art if it's digital?" And like, a few things clicked in my head at that moment, and it was where I knew that I was going all in, because I realized that future generations will not have this same hang-up. And I realized that for me, I'm not a painter. I studied computer science. So I'm actually more capable of assessing the art of a coder than I am the art of a painter. It's actually more within my domain to appreciate the art of a coder than the art of a painter. And the notion that someone in the luxury business would consider a leather bag craft and not code is total absurdity, right? Like, we kill a cow, we color its skin, we cut it into shapes, and we stitch it together. Well, that's craft. But someone spends their life learning to code and creates the world's first still life out of code, Chimera by MP Cause.
I was going to say, who's your house guest?
Yeah, exactly. And look, and he asks, I can pass around an article that I wrote for Rick Rubin's magazine about MP Cause. It's a beautiful story of a human being who has a craft and applied that craft to still life, as human beings have done for literally tens of thousands of years, right? So that to me is the answer to the question, is that generative art, like everything else, like leather making, like making wines and spirits, like making jewelry, is a craft. It's a craft that expresses itself digitally in a digital world. So I will bet long on that. I will bet long on the future generations really understanding and appreciating the craft of prompting. If you come by Bright Moments today, you'll meet Rupe Renisto, who's a Finnish artist, and he was the one that, for me, if you look up a collection called Life in West America, it was the first time for me that I went, oh wow, okay, I understand what generative AI can do in the hands of a creative person to create a body of work which contemporary art critics would call art. And I think the other way to contextualize that is, again, I'm in my 50s as well. So of course, it takes me longer to appreciate that than someone who's in their teens or in their 20s, right? So if you want to bet on the future of art, put it in the realm of people who have grown up, prompting ChatGPT to do their bidding.
One of the biggest forks in the road for me strategically is the sort of scarcity and abundance, right? The generative art is really based on scarcity, right? It's one of, there are 10,000 squiggles, there's 1,000 Fidenzas, there's 10,000 CryptoPunks, right? It's all about that kind of algorithmic precision and defined outputs. If you woke up tomorrow and suddenly you found out there was 21,000,001 Bitcoin, all shit would break loose. The markets would crumble, because all of crypto is based on the knowledge and the proof that there's only going to ever be 21 million Bitcoin, right? Now you have AI and generative AI, and it's all about abundance. I mean, you can hit Midjourney, you can hit ChatGPT, DALL-E, Runway, Sora. You're going to generate all these outputs, and it costs nothing because of all the compute out there. You mentioned Rupe. Rupe has a collection called Aura. There's 100 outputs, and they're beautiful. And when I met him for the first time in person yesterday, and I minted mine, number 23, which I love, he said he started with 20,000. Like, what photographer do you know takes 20,000 photographs and then chooses 100, right? So it just gives you a sense of, like, I think how some of these dynamics are going to play out. I'm not sure how AI is going to get monetized as art. NFTs are important. I think tokenizing AI is going to continue to happen. But again, it's one of the big question marks I have.
Yeah, and I think this is a bit of an aside, but let me throw something out there that I've been thinking about a lot. If you go back to, say 2004, and we had to make a bet on Microsoft versus iPhone as the mobile phone winner, a rational person would have chosen Microsoft, right? Because it was more logical that you were going to shrink the PC down into a phone than you were going to upscale the iPod into a phone. Like it wasn't that believable. By the way, I had this conversation with Tony Fadell over breakfast, the inventor of the iPod. So I feel somewhat like I'm on the right track here. He didn't shut me down when I said this. Where we are right now, if you look at these AI devices, the Rabbit R1 was kind of a hot device coming out of CES. If you haven't seen it, check out the video. Basically, it's a device, and the only thing you do, the only interface is you talk to it, and it's an AI device, and it does what you say it's going to do. But the notion that you're going to talk to that device and say, "Buy me a ticket to Miami," like think about what's involved in that, right? It's what's it going to do? It's going to go to Skyscanner, and then it's going to log into your Air France account, or I actually think there's a similar thing here, where if you do fast forward to a world full of AI, which, as Seth is saying, is AI brings digital abundance, right? You actually need this flip side of not only digital scarcity, but digital ownership. Because it would be much easier to build that device with digital ownership than with the web that we have today, right? Imagine this thing where I have to give this little box my Air France credentials as well as my, French B credentials and my, et cetera, et cetera. Like it just doesn't work, and it's not secure. If, on the other hand, I have ownership and I have digital currency, I have digital, my Air France membership is actually digital, right? My preferences are owned by me, not owned in 1,000 sites across the internet, right? Now, this is possible for the first time. So to me, there is this interplay. Art is just the tip of the spear. The same way that music, if you look at both of our careers, music was just the tip of the spear for media on the internet, right? What was the internet? The internet was a revolution of information. Information that was previously locked behind gatekeepers became available to everyone, right? The innovation of the innovation was anybody can register www.yahoo.com and create a company, right? And now what you have is a revolution of value. So we're up here talking about art, but this isn't just about art. Like I said at the beginning, this is about the ownership of your identity, your speech, right? To be free, we need property rights and we need free speech. These things are not possible when you can be deplatformed by Google, Facebook, Twitter, et cetera. Like this is how fundamental we're talking about. And digital art, this art thing we're talking about, it's just kind of easy because I can make something and then I can sell it to you. That's just super easy. The same way ripping a compact disc was easy in 1998, right? So that, to me, that's why the contextualization of that is important. I think we're out of time. I'm out of time because I have to go get my records and get to Bright Moments. I'm DJing at noon. So thank you guys. Anything else before we part?